After lashing Haiti, the Turks and Caicos, and the southeast Bahamas as a hurricane, Hannah weakened to a tropical storm. It was forecast to become a hurricane again prior to its final landfall, but fortunately failed to do so. Jesse Bass and his good friend and severe weather photographer Bill Coyle rendezvoused with me in Southport, North Carolina, just 30 minutes from my front door. In 1954, Hurricane Hazel devastated Southport and the neighboring barrier islands. Although Hannah was not destined to be a historic hurricane for the Carolinas, people were taking it seriously. We made our way south to the popular resort city of Myrtle Beach, where we experienced moderate tropical storm conditions. For the most part, Hannah was a novelty for people vacationing along the Grand Strand. They were more concerned with Ike, at this point a major hurricane over the open Atlantic. Hannah made landfall near the North Carolina-South Carolina border and then raced off to the northeast, spreading wind and rain up the east coast. The hurricane marathon continued, and with little time to rest, our attention turned to Hurricane Ike. Hurricane Ike was a very large Category 2 hurricane when it made landfall directly over Galveston, Texas on September the 13th. The hurricane could have made landfall anywhere from the Carolinas to Florida, or even the battered central Gulf Coast. Computer models finally settled on a Texas landfall, although there was no certainty as to exactly where Ike would end up. I departed North Carolina on September 10th to meet Mike Watkins at our usual location in Lake City, Florida. From there, we trekked west along I-10 in what has become an all-too-familiar route for us. Our stopping point for the night was none other than Gulfport, Mississippi. On Thursday, September 11th, we hit the road again but took a tour of the Mississippi coast before heading to Texas. Mike and I were in Gulfport for Hurricane Katrina in 2005 and have come to know the region quite well. As we made our way along Coastal Highway 90, it was obvious that Ike's influence is being felt even this far away. Waveland, recovering from Katrina and then most recently Gustav, was flooded in its low-lying areas as a direct result of Hurricane Ike. This was an ominous sign if there ever was one. Never before had I seen water rises this significant so far out ahead of a hurricane. We pressed on and crossed through Louisiana and into Texas, arriving in Galveston during the early evening hours. Unlike what I had witnessed with Hurricane Rita, there was no stream of traffic leaving Galveston. We were quite concerned that people were not taking Ike's Category 2 status seriously. Along the famed seawall, curious onlookers gazed out at a relatively uneventful Gulf of Mexico. That was all about to change, and in only a matter of hours. After one last hot meal at the San Luis Resort, Mike and I checked out the seawall at the Flagship Hotel. There was a noticeable increase in the wave action and the water level. We met and talked to several people who were curious about our project. Everyone had the same nervous feeling that we did. Meanwhile, nearly 30 miles away in Gilchrist, Tim Millar was making his way down the Bolivar Peninsula. Little did he know he was shooting video of what would be a decimated coastline. With an unsettling mood overcoming us, Mike and I could not sleep just yet. So we took one last look at the conditions along the seawall before finally turning in for the night.
What we got, Mike? We got the Gulf of Mexico, angry. The outer bands haven't even gotten here yet. We're standing here at the Galveston seawall, about halfway down the island, and the water is already coming up and over well in advance. The beaches have completely eroded now, and all that really stands between these businesses, houses, and residents on the north part of the island and the Gulf of Mexico is this 12-foot seawall that I'm looking down now, and you can see, whoa, it's already coming up. So
wow.
we're not even feeling the wind yet.
It was now Friday, September 12th. The eyes of the nation were fixed on Galveston and the surrounding region. There was good reason for this. Not since Hurricane Carla had people witnessed anything quite like these scenes. The time for sightseeing was over. We went west along the island to Bermuda Beach, where we would place the first of our remote hurricane cameras. We chose this house due to its location away from the Gulf. Ideally, we do not want to place the camera on a structure that we think could be destroyed by storm surge. The view from the camera unit showed a dangerous situation unfolding, and time was running out for people still on this portion of Galveston Island, including us. The pace of the day quickened with a heightened sense of urgency. We set up the second camera unit very close to the Galveston Hurricane Monument. Not too long after, we deployed the 5-meter wind tower at an open area of Galveston College. Our biggest concern for the gear was flooding from storm surge and rain. Local officials told us that the island floods easily from even run-of-the-mill afternoon thunderstorms. It took only about a half hour to get everything up and running. The wind data was transmitting to our website perfectly. So far, everything was going according to plan. We had 2 live camera units in the wind tower operational, and it was not even raining yet. This is where things stopped being easy. With 2 camera units in the wind tower set up and operating, Mike and I then made our way towards downtown to place the 3rd camera unit. We were met with a nasty surprise. While this map may not be exactly accurate, it does show the general extent of the water rise at this point on Friday, September 12th. Even though the Eye of Ike was still a little less than 12 hours away, its huge wind field began to really show itself by pushing Galveston Bay deep into the city. Where Mike and I were, at 17th and Broadway, the water from Galveston Bay was approaching quickly. Take a look at this incredible time lapse. This is only about 5 minutes of elapsed time. Take a look again. The water was spreading up the street very quickly. As if this were not enough to deal with, all of a sudden,
What is it? Fire? Yeah.
one of several fires broke out very near to where Mike and I were. We tried to place calls to other people who we knew were in the area to see if they could tell us exactly where it was.
Here we go again with the fires, dude. If he answers, tell him there's a fire. We got a fire. Dave's in and come here! Looking for the fire. Come on, we got it! It's behind the hospital! Behind the hospital! Harbor side! By the port screen? Alright. Hey guys!
We then received a phone call from a friend of mine, Lou Fincher. He is a well-known hurricane historian and knows Galveston and its historic landmarks. Lou wanted to help us to place the 3rd camera at the Alyssa, part of the Texas Seaport Museum.
Turn left or right on Broadway. Okay. Turning right. Yes. There's water up ahead. All underwater, Lou. It's impassable. Wait a minute, there's vehicles further down. Say it again? Gotcha. Now the next block is impassable. I cannot cross Church Street. A lot of people are here. Okay, now I'm at 22nd Street. There's a Bank of America catty corner to me. As I look right down Avenue F, it's underwater, deeper.
Needless to say, it was already too late. There was no way for Mike and I to get anywhere near the Alyssa.
29.301. Look at how bad it really is. Watch. Keep watching. The side of those. Look. Paul said that they're taller than the lights. Is that a building? It's a building, isn't it? See that? In the distance, that's a building.
This one up first. I'm just concerned that once that wall breaches, this place is going to fill up like a fish. It's going to breach.
So, you want to go down there?
Yeah, let's go down there. So the officers down there. That's where that water is.
Meanwhile, towards the west end of Galveston, beyond the extent of the seawall, our camera at Bermuda Beach was doing its job. All day long, the surge kept rolling in, wave after wave. This camera view was shown numerous times on CNN and of course was streamed live to HurricaneTrack.com. The little blue house became the subject of much interest as to whether or not it would survive the day. Our mid-Galveston camera was not capturing anything nearly as dramatic yet, but showed us an emptying Seawall Boulevard. Finally, people were leaving the area and seeking shelter. Ike was closing in, and I think by now people knew it was going to be bad. We settled on 13th Street and Avenue N1/2 as the location for a third remote camera unit. Time was running out and we would soon lose daylight. Even though the seawall was keeping the Gulf in check, this area seemed to be flooding more so than farther west. It mattered little, however. Darkness would once again creep up on us and hide Ike's worst effects, as we'll examine later. Water was not the only enemy of Galveston this day. For some reason, numerous fires erupted all across the historic city. This was a problem during Hurricane Rita as well. At this yacht basin area, the most dramatic of the fires broke out. Tim Millar was on scene and shot this video.
Okay.
Here is where our remote cameras provide us with something rather unique. In addition to capturing the fire from this perspective, we also get a chance to see something extremely rare. Notice the direction of the clouds versus the direction of the smoke. The low-level flow of air across Galveston was clearly different than that of the clouds of the hurricane. Why this is remains a mystery to us. We made one last trip towards downtown where flooding was increasing at an alarming rate. Our chance to escape from Galveston had likely come and gone. We were now committed to staying put on the island and could do little more than monitor our remote camera units in the wind tower from the safety of our room at the San Luis. Our good friends at CNN had hooked us up with a room on the 11th floor. We parked on the north side of the hotel, hauled in some of our gear, got a quick bite to eat, and then began shooting handheld video to document the hours to come. Got 54 on the Tahoe. So what do you think?
Yeah, just getting started now. Cameras are doing their thing, wind tower's doing its thing, and now we're gonna go out and shoot some handhelds. Waiting for the surge.
As darkness overtook Galveston, our remote cameras could do little more than stand as witnesses to Ike's wrath. As the wind increased, so did the damage. And eventually, the power was out for good. Even though the camera units performed exactly as they should have, it was frustrating to again battle darkness in trying to succeed at this project. So much can be gained if we could actually see the worst part of a hurricane when it comes ashore. Time-lapse video would be very useful in understanding exactly how quickly things happened over the course of the day. We certainly can't control the weather, and Ike was going to make landfall at the worst possible time, in the dead of night. We would have to keep up with Ike's progress from the 11th floor of the San Luis Resort. So Mike, what does this show here, buddy? What do we got?
Well, we're looking Galveston, Houston Galveston radar. This is the center of the hurricane. You remember a couple days ago we had a little tiny eye in the middle of there, then a second wind maxima. That little eye is gone and has been replaced by a much larger eye. We are here, let me point this, we are basically right here on this map. And if you look at the trajectory of the eye and the way it's moving, it looks like the eye is going to come very close to us. Now the question is going to be, the Hurricane Center believes that this thing will begin to move to the north, east, to the northwest, anytime. Now, if it does that over here, then comes up, that is going to put a significant south wind on our island. We're going to have a lot of surge. Wow. If this starts to make the turn a little bit before, we'll get most west and north winds on the island, and that'll make a big difference for the surge here. We'll get mostly bay flooding, and maybe we won't see the big significant overtopping of the seawall that many residents here fear. So, the next 8 hours, that story is going to be written. And so, as long as Houston Galveston radar stays up, and we don't see any reason why it shouldn't, it's well inland here, we'll be able to watch this thing come in on us.
It's trying to pull out.
Wow.
So Mike, where are we?
On the eye of the storm here in Galveston. I mean, listen, there are locusts chirping.
We are in the eye of the hurricane right now. Hardly a breath of wind. I know you can't see anything. This is the calmest that I've ever seen it in an eye, I think.
Wow.
This is incredible. Here's the Tahoe. Look at this. This is the eye, and it's just barely spinning, just a little bit of air moving. The eye of Hurricane Ike.
That's mesmerizing.
Hurricane Ike made landfall around 2:10 in the morning Galveston time. We had made it through so far without any serious problems. However, the backside of Ike was not going to be so easy. So what's going on, Mike?
In the backside of the eye. And, you know, when we were on the southwest side, the whole building taking up the wind. Now we're getting it directly from the southwest as the eye is passing over us, west and southwest. So the wind is hitting us before it's hitting anything else on this building. We're on the 11th floor, and these windows are shaking. There's a lot of pressure coming down from those hallways. There's something open, some vent or something in the stairwell back behind us. That's putting a lot of pressure on these windows, trying to push them out.
The wind was now blowing directly into the south and west side of the San Luis, and more importantly was coming from the water, and not over land as it was during the first half. The frictional effects of a slightly offshore wind were now gone, and Ike had a more direct shot of wind onto the island.
blowing up this thing too.
I'm scared to open it.
I think we can do it.
What just happened?
Well, we just started getting down the stairs before they came up to evacuate everyone, so
We had the right
the
idea.
police and firefighters are working right now to get everybody off those top floors. There are windows compromised up there. There's glass or something hitting the windows on the way down, and it's creating a very unsafe situation because once one of those pop, it creates a vacuum on other and more stress on the other windows, and that's why they're getting everybody out of the top floors right now.
I don't know what there is. Frank got that.
This is Fire Chief Michael Varela. He was briefing reporters on current conditions in Galveston.
We can get help out there, we'll get help to you. Basically, they're just trying to reassure them that eventually we will get out here once conditions allow. So, we had some vehicles that were just about totally covered, so I'm imagining now they're probably totally underwater.
Certain parts of town you're gonna try and get to first tomorrow, or you just this morning, later this morning?
Well, once they get out and they clear a path for us to get through, we're definitely going to hit the west end. First thing we're going to do is attempt to address all of these calls that were made, and once we do that, then we will go out and do a search.
Ike was now well inland over Texas. Surviving the storm was relatively easy for most people. Evacuation orders and common sense prevailed. The hard part would be surviving the aftermath. The venerable seawall protected the Gulf side of Galveston. As it turned out, the biggest problem would be from Galveston Bay, which flooded Galveston Island to within blocks of the seawall. What looked like a bullet dodge for the historic city was anything but. Scores of homes and businesses were flooded by Galveston Bay. The fact that they were not bulldozed left an impression that things were not too bad for the city. Believe me, this was not the case. Where did you ride it out? You evacuated your house, didn't you?
Yes, sir. We went to the San Luis Convention Center and rode it out there with A&A Wrecker, which is Noel Andewall Jr. Stayed there. Mr. Juice D with the convention center. Real nice, let us stay there.
Was that a safe place?
One of the safest I would think of. It was tight. I mean, I would stay there again if I had to stay.
And we're going to go see your house now. What happened to your house?
Well, yesterday we rode down this way and sorry guys. 6 foot of water was inside the house. Looked like somebody just went in there and threw everything everywhere. Once we get in, you'll see how bad it looks.
All right, Mark, just take us through, buddy.
Well, like I said, the water was coming up. We parked where we had 2 trucks. See if they could ride out the storm. We came back to get the dog. We left the dog here first, and then we came back and got him. Just couldn't do that to him.
Right.
I let down the staircase to the attic. That way he can get up there. But we got to about 61st Street and said, no, we got to go get him. By the time I came back and parked right up here at these houses, if you see, I waited from over there over here, and I was in...
You waded through the water to get your dog.
I waded through the water to get the dog, about knee deep. Opened the door, got him out, we went back in knee deep water. The only thing of him that was coming out of the water was his head. Water came up to here.
On the other side.
All right, guys, not much to see.
Go ahead, Mark, I got it. There's the water line. Wow, Mark.
And that's inside the house, guys.
So the water did this?
Water did all this. All this was set up nice and neat. That's a table that weighs probably about 300 pounds. It takes 2 people plus a mule to move it. There's desks, computers, some of this stuff that was in the living rooms over here. This was the living room. Couch was sitting there straight. 2 chairs. You can see they moved all over the place.
Nice television too.
Yep, brand new TV, more about 3 years old. Wow. Stereo system. Kitchen's a mess. Brand new, had everything redone about 5 years ago. Brand new counters, countertop cabinets.
What do you expect to do next? Do you have flood insurance?
Have flood insurance, fully insured. Waiting to see what they're gonna say. Hopefully FEMA, whoever needs to come down here and starts taking care of the people of Galveston. They told them within 48 hours we should know something about where we're going to be able to stay. Good. They said, the house is unlivable, and you can tell it's really unlivable, guys.
Yeah, the smell in here, obviously we can't translate that over video, but it's very humid. The air is very heavy in here, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, very. Lens fogged up when we came in, and obviously the water has been in here and it's saturated everything below the water line, and that water hasn't had a chance to go anywhere. It's been so humid since the hurricane came through.
And it wicked up into the walls. Using computer graphics, we can add water to this photo of Mark's house. Without the pounding effects of wave action, this is probably very close to what the scene looked like along Rice Avenue and across much of Galveston. It was now getting towards 2 full days since Ike made landfall. Recovery efforts were well underway, although the full extent of Ike's damage was not yet realized. We had collected the wind tower and the 2 cameras that were placed on the eastern portion of Galveston. We still had one more to retrieve, beyond the seawall at Bermuda Beach. I caught a ride with David Hirsch, who was helping out with post-Ike recovery efforts along the West End. He had permission to escort me to Bermuda Beach in order to recover the last remote camera unit.
Hey guys, don't you know how to herd cows with a truck?
No.
Where are you going?
Jamaica Beach and Jolly Roger.
Oh, you just go, okay. Right up here you'll see the truck, the bulldozers.
Yeah.
If they don't have it cleared, you can go across the sand and go down the other side. If you want to follow me, I'll get you part way. Bermuda Beach. Where's the house at?
Should be at Pabst and John Reynolds. These are all still standing for the most part. This is a time lapse showing several hours of footage from the remote camera. We knew that it had stopped recording after 9 hours since the tape would have run out. The only consolation to that technical issue is that it was dark during the height of the hurricane, and we would not have seen much of anything. We were wondering what had happened to the blue house, though, since it was already surrounded by the Gulf of Mexico when we first set up the camera. I was about to find out firsthand. Indeed, Ike Surge had claimed the blue house. It likely did so late at night as the worst of the hurricane rolled in. Fortunately, no one was in the home at the time, an obvious wise choice. I found the storm case containing the recording equipment right where Mike and I had left it. The house that we used to place the camera had minor damage but was otherwise in good shape. David helped me load the heavy case into his truck and off we went.
Watch his board don't hit you.
As we traveled back towards the east end of Galveston, it was apparent that the surge took its toll. The one positive is the fact that we were not seeing row after row of flattened homes. There certainly were structures lost to the surge, but considering what could have happened to Galveston's west end, this was not too bad.
Loading cows with the trucks.
Mike and I departed Galveston late in the afternoon of September 14th. On our way out, we passed dozens of boats piled against I-45's eastbound lanes near the bay.
Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm driving on I-45, and the traffic lane into Galveston is absolutely covered in hundreds and hundreds of yachts and boats.
keep it slow. Dude, this was all under surge water. We also passed piles of storm surge debris along I-10, well to the east of Houston.
These are all the cars that were abandoned. They ran out of gas.
Within these debris piles were the remains of all kinds of animals, but hopefully nothing more. We left behind a grim and increasingly desperate situation. At the time, we had no idea of what had become of the region to the east of Galveston, along the Bolivar Peninsula. Ike will long be remembered alongside of infamous Texas hurricanes such as Alicia, Carla, and the great 1900 hurricane. The irony is that these same scenes were repeated after Carla in 1961 and the 1900 storm. Ike was no different in terms of the legacy it will leave behind, teaching a new generation about the power of water. In the weeks since Ike, there has been an unfortunate void of attention to the region from national news media and celebrities. Very few have seemed to step up and speak loudly for Texas. Although recovery is underway, there does not appear to be the same interest and concern for the region as there was for New Orleans after Katrina. A large portion of the northwest Gulf of Mexico coastline was severely damaged by Ike's storm surge. From southwest Louisiana, where Rita exacted a heavy toll in 2005, to at least Surfside Beach, no coastal town in between escaped Ike without considerable loss. I returned to Texas in mid-October to further document life after Ike. In Pleasure Island, just to the east of Port Arthur, the remains of boats lined the streets where the surge had deposited them. I was in this exact location for Hurricane Rita and saw nothing even close to this kind of damage. Farther west along Highway 73 between Port Arthur and Winnie, evidence of an expansive storm surge stretched as far as the eye could see. Gruesome reminders of that remained more than a month later. As I traveled from Winnie to the peninsula, the scene was desolate. This very road, at least 15 miles from the Gulf of Mexico, was underwater during Ike. Now the water is closer than ever before. Making my way down the Bolivar Peninsula gave me yet again an appreciation for what hurricanes are capable of. This is why the National Weather Service issued their stern warning indicating certain death for people who remain behind, defying the pleas for evacuation. Not every structure was destroyed, but who would want to gamble on which ones would remain? Some did just that, and paid with their lives. Along the eastern tip of Galveston Island, a concoction of household debris and personal effects created this eerie mat of floating ruin. Back at the San Luis Resort, I could not resist but to venture back to the 11th floor. The only noise to be heard now was that of air conditioning. Out the window, a scene of recovery. I will always remember this hallway and the unrelenting chorus of howling wind that will forever remain entrenched deep within my memory. Looking out at Galveston, you would hardly know a hurricane had struck just a little over a month prior. But looks, as you know, can be deceiving. Back in Bermuda Beach, the sounds of machinery replaced the stillness of the air that immediately followed Ike. The historic island was battered at a time when much uncertainty gripped not only the community, but the nation. The seawall provided the protection that it was meant to and kept the Gulf from overtaking Galveston. Ike was perhaps its greatest test since being built in the wake of our country's deadliest natural disaster. In 1900, it was Isaac Klein who studied the weather in Galveston and knew, even though it was too late, that a terrible hurricane was approaching. 108 years later, a network of satellites and computers, along with the men and women who provide modern-day hurricane warnings, continue the work that Klein put into motion. We cannot wall off the entire coastline, and sometimes we will have to accept that the hurricanes will win. It is up to those of us who enjoy the beauty of the ocean to respect it and to know when it is time to allow it to become angry. As for Texas and Louisiana, people will rebuild and life will go on. Even in the face of adversity, the human spirit always prevails. After Ike, the landfall threat to the United States diminished. I did make quite a long trip to New England for Hurricane Kyle. There was enough of a chance that it would brush eastern Maine that I felt I had to be there. Not since Hurricane Bob in 1991 had a hurricane watch been posted for this region.
Hurricane Kyle, Category 1 status right now, about 200 miles, give or take, off the coast of Nantucket. They only affect Massachusetts when we had rain we have on the Cape, but it'll bear down in the Gulf of Maine and eventually peter out over cold water.
It was a very long road trip and amounted to little more than a visit to a spectacular area of the country. It was now autumn and the changes in the leaves was a sight to behold. I have never been this far north, not to New England.
Instant rain. Wow.
I arrived in Bar Harbor to find a wet, cold, and dreary day. The water was virtually flat. Kyle had faded east and lashed Nova Scotia, but even there, the event was nothing too serious. No more hurricanes would impact the U.S., but this was not the case for the Caribbean. Hurricane Omar passed through the Virgin Islands with appreciable damage in the region. Hurricane Paloma was yet another in a series of strong hurricanes to strike Cuba, only adding insult to injury. It all ended with 16 named storms and 8 hurricanes. 5 of the hurricanes reached Category 3 or higher. There is some uncertainty as to whether or not Faye will be upgraded to hurricane strength. We'll have to wait and see about that. There was also a no-name storm that affected the Carolinas between Ike and Kyle. That too may be added to the list down the road. And what a road it has been. For nearly 10 years we have been out in the field during some of the most incredible weather on Earth. Our mission has always been to collect data. Whether it is visual or measured with weather instruments, we have strived to move the science of studying hurricanes forward. Along the way, we have encountered people who touched our lives because the weather touched theirs. It is this common thread in an uncommon job that has connected us with the people who are impacted by these hurricanes. Our hope is that a better understanding of the true power of these seasonal threats will come from projects like this program. An uncertain future lies ahead of us all. It is a different time, a time of change, some of it drastic and sudden. No matter, we must remember that the hurricanes will always be a part of our history, and for some, a way of life. It has been a remarkable 10 years for us. The next 10 begins now.